Welcome to the Big Life Podcast, where dreams aren't just imagined, they're built brick by brick, belief by belief. Hosted by Neal Oates Jr. and Robin Lewis, this show is your invitation to discover your amazing capabilities, invest in your growth, and unleash your potential in ways you've only dreamed of. Join Neal and Robin as they dive deep into stories, insights, and tools designed to inspire you to show up big, live intentionally, and give yourself away for the betterment of those around you. Get ready to rise to what you're truly worthy of. The big life starts now.
You ever feel like you're doing all the right things, but still not getting the results that you expected? The answer might not be in your systems. It might be in your sight. Today, Neal and I are talking about perspective. How you see the world, your work, your people, and yourself. And let me tell you, shifting your perspective can shift your entire trajectory. Welcome to the Big Life Podcast, everyone, where we help purpose-driven business owners to lead with belief, to grow with purpose, and to build what lasts. I'm Robin Lewis, and I'm going to let my friend Neal Oates Jr. introduce himself.
Robin, don't cheat yourself. So here we go. So Robin, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the most modest, humble people I know. So I'm going to introduce Robin and myself. Mr. Robin Lewis, leadership coach, speaker, and business strategist. Always an honor. I am Neal Oates Jr., his co-host and fellow leader in the trenches. And so I want to make sure that I'm giving respect and honor where it is due, Robin. I appreciate you opening this up with a lot of humility, but that's also great for what we're talking about today. Today's conversation is close to Robin and my hearts because we've both lived it. And when your perspective is off, even your best efforts can fall flat. So let's talk about this perspective today, Robin.
It's so true. And for anyone who's listening, if you ever felt stuck or unclear or questioning whether you're still on the right path, this episode is for you.
Now, one of the guys that we look up to, one of our mentors, our leader, our teacher, Dr. John C. Maxwell, says it this way, Robin: the way you view things is the way you do things. So I'm going to repeat that one more time. The way you view things is the way you do things. And I'm willing to go out on the limb and speak for Robin here, ladies and gentlemen. We've seen that play out in leadership, not once, but over and over again. And so we're going to talk about this power of perspective today, Robin. And I know we're excited about it. We're also ready to learn and see what one another have to say. But ultimately, we're really excited about the transformation that's going to take place in the audience today.
Yes, right on. Perspective really does shape everything. I remember there was a season in my business where we were growing, Neal. We were growing fast. But I wasn't.
Hold on. Robin, anytime you pause in the middle of a statement and laugh, it's typically because there's some self-reflection coming right there. So the business was growing fast, but...
Yeah, I wasn't, Neal. That's the reality. And so the business outgrew me. And, everything looked good maybe on the outside, but the way that I showed up, I showed up from a place of stress and scarcity and control. And I remember thinking, why do I feel like I'm losing even when we're winning? It wasn't a strategy issue. It was a perspective issue. And, for a long time, I separated my faith from my business, and I saw them as two different worlds, Neal. But when I slowed down to define, the vision and the values and get focused on what truly mattered, I realized something huge. That my business, that our business really is a form of ministry. It's how we serve people. And that reframing, Neal, changed everything. It changed how I led. It changed how I showed up every day. And so that perspective, that little perspective shift, recognizing that business and faith go together. And in fact, that our business really is our ministry. It changed how I showed up on a daily basis.
Mr. Robin Lewis, audience, why are we not surprised that Robin came to that realization after slowing down, right? He slowed down and that realization came to him. And here's what I love. I love the fact that that is real, that is authentic, that's genuine, and it's relatable because how we see things determines how we do things. Reminding or repeating Dr. John C. Maxwell. And you mentioned how you showed up from a place of stress, from a place of control. It does impact how we show up. It impacts how we lead others and even how we navigate those hard conversations, especially in our business or maybe even in our relationships. If we aren't showing up right, Robin, the likelihood is very high that those hard conversations, how we navigate those, might not be as good as they could be.
Yeah, it's so true. And that's why I've heard John Maxwell say, and I firmly believe this myself, that perspective is the one thing outside of my faith that I would talk to somebody about. Outside of my faith, the one thing that I would talk to somebody about living the big life, about living into their potential is perspective, because perspective shapes everything else. Perspective shifts, everything that there's a scripture that we're going to touch on today. It says, above all else, guard your heart,
Yeah.
because everything flows from it. So what you believe shapes how you see, and how you see determines what you receive. Two people can face the same challenge. One grows and the other quits. And the difference is perspective. Right,
And,
Neal?
and Robin, we see that all the time, right? That's how we can have people in the same environment but see different things. That reminds me of the story of the kid or the twin boys who the dad gave one a pony and gave the other one a pile of horse manure. And the one kid who got the pony wasn't pleased with the pony. He was upset. And the other kid who got the manure was excited, and they were like, well, why are you excited? You got a pile of horse manure. And he was like, with all this manure, there has to be a pony somewhere, right? And the difference was the perspective, right?
Yes, I like that.
And we can be looking at an obstacle and call it failure. And Neal is guilty of this very recently. I see an obstacle, and it might even be labeled an obstacle, but me, in my all-knowing, know-it-all manner, I will take obstacle off and I will relabel that obstacle failure. And or we could look at an obstacle and call it feedback. And that is not the position that is my default position, ladies and gentlemen, typically. And this is coming from someone who understands growth and leadership and perspective. So I have to be conscious about making the right choice, about seeing this thing and not calling it failure, but calling it feedback. And ultimately, that choice of how I'm going to label it, how I'm going to address it, it shapes my future. And how you label the choices that you make, how you determine or decide to see obstacles, that's going to shape your future as well.
Yes, and it's so true. And the heart, the inner person, then our thoughts, our attitudes, our convictions, our heart is where perspective lives. And it's either protecting our purpose, it's either protecting your purpose, or it's poisoning your progress. And
Now,
so,
Robin, right there, you don't give us two great options. You give us a good and one that is detrimental, one beneficial and one detrimental. So it's not like, okay, well, it's stagnant. Like, no, it's either going to benefit you, right? The perspective you have, or it's going to be detrimental to your growth and progress.
exactly. Neal, as an example, I I grew up with a poor self-image. I was teased, I was compared, called all kind of names, Dumbo, King Tubby, Platonk. And for years, I didn't see any greatness in me. But when I came to know God, I started to see myself differently, not through others, not what others thought, but through His truth. And that belief has shaped everything. My confidence has grown, my leadership has grown. My purpose is more clear and it's more mine. Your identity isn't tied to performance. I hope our listeners can lean in on this one. It's grounded in truth. And when you see yourself the way that God sees you, everything changes. From how you speak to how you show up to how you lead. And that's something that you must guard
Yeah.
through what you hear, what you see, what you absorb, what you believe, what you dwell on. All those things shape our perspective. They shape the heart, if you will.
And so I'm going to share a little bit about the lens and how it shapes our leadership. But every time I hear your experience, Robin, growing up, isn't it amazing how clearly and how quickly we can recall those damaging things that were said or placed on us, even after a few seasons in our life, right? So these things were not said about Robin Lewis yesterday. This is something that was said about little Robin growing up. And you don't have to search very far. You don't have to go way back to bring those things to the forefront of your mind. Is that correct?
That's such a good point because that shaped my perspective. You're so right. And it's a valid point. Yes, sir.
And so, Robin, here's what, and I know we're going to continue down this conversation, but I think it's always important for us to hit our audience and even ourselves as we go through, and we're going to do the editing on the episode, and then we'll listen to it, and then we'll actually listen to it when it's released. How do we keep the proper perspective today? And we've talked about imposter syndrome in the past, but even today, Robin Lewis, who is going through on this journey, seeking to not only live the big life, but also show others how to live the big life and show them that it's possible, but we still remember the perspective that we had. We remember about the things that we used to say. And you even helped me with this last week, Robin, when I was like, man, I can't believe this, and this. And you were like, how can you say that? Don't even talk like that. And then we had a giggle about the silly dog type thing, right? And so how do we protect ourselves from knowing the truth, but keep ourselves from reverting back to those previous and prior perspectives that we might have had?
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, because and that's where the scripture, the proverb that I recited earlier about guarding your heart. I think that's what you're asking. How do we guard our heart then? And I think it's about being very careful and intentional
Yeah.
about what we listen to, what we absorb, what we read, what we dwell on, the things that we believe. The people that we're around have a lot to do with that. What we're watching, seeing, listening to has a lot to do with that. And so I think, so for example, if I can give you a practical thing, one of the things that I do today is I have a document that we've prepared. We actually shared it with the podcast listeners on one of our previous episodes about remembering who you are. And I have a document that has 10 I am statements about remembering who I am according to the scripture. And I review that document almost daily. And so I'm reminding myself, because I agree with you, it's very easy. There's so much other stuff that's coming at us that we have to be very intentional about what we are allowing to really absorb and penetrate.
Absolutely. So since I have you not on the hot seat, but coming from a position of experience,
Yes, sir.
let's talk real life leadership, right? So we know that your lens shapes your leadership. That's what you and I believe. That's what our mentors, coaches believe. But let's really talk about those tough conversations. And the tough conversation could be as a business owner, it could be as a significant other, as a parent, spouse, brother, like sibling, whatever. But when it comes to real life leadership, especially those tough conversations, how does our lens shape that part of life?
Yeah, it's such a good example because a lot of times, I'll stop and say, I actually did hear this from one of our mentors, Mark Cole. I remember Mark Cole challenging us. We were actually on a group call, and he challenged us that every time we are going into a difficult conversation, before we go into that conversation, we're to stop and ask ourselves, is this about me getting something off my chest? Or is this about me helping the person that I'm going to have the conversation with? Am I trying to add value to them? Or is this something that I just want to get off my chest? You know what I mean? Is this about Robin or is this about them, essentially? And that perspective changes everything when we have those tough conversations. Because sometimes, yes, we do need to say things that might be tough, but how we say it makes all the difference. And so the perspective we have going into it affects how we say that. You know, a few years ago.
But before you continue, Robin,
Yeah.
I want to ask you this question. So now you have been on this growth journey for a couple of seasons, as we're going to say.
Yeah.
How much of that has changed from I want to just get something off of my chest to no, I'm doing this really to help someone? Like, do you see a big change there?
That's a good question.
And then the next thing, right? Because we can ask that question as Mark Cole advised us to do, right? Ask the question, is this about me getting it off my chest? And we can be like, yes, it is. And I'm still going to do that. Or did Robin come in and say, it was about me getting it off my chest, but let me slow down, let me reflect, and then let me do this the right way for the right reason. I'm just curious if you're willing to share for the benefit of our audience. I think this would be a great thing, especially because many times we will look at those or listen to those and think that they've always done it right. So we'll look at our mentors, coaches, the host of the Big Life podcast and say, well, of course they're always doing it right. Look how amazing these two guys are. And we're not going to refute that part that we're amazing, but just walk us through where are you? Where were you in that journey? What does it look like now, if you're willing to share, Robert?
Neal, I still struggle with it. In fact, I'll just say that up front to our listeners. Yes, I have gotten a lot better at it, without a doubt. However, just a couple of years ago, Neal, this happened recently, in other words, I'm telling you, and it made me realize, just like you put it, after learning this and practicing and doing this for so many years, and, especially when it comes to leadership, I can tell you, there was like a surprise directive at work, and that threw everybody off,
Wait, now, when you say everybody, because I know you're at work,
including Robin.
That's what I wanted to know, Robin.
Instead of taking a breath, I let my pride lead the way, Neal. I vented, I criticized, I raised my voice even. I said some things that were sarcastic. It was not my best moment. But, through conviction and scripture, especially Ephesians 2, where it reminded me to be humble and to practice patience and grace. That's the true mark of leadership. Real leadership, a real leader is humble and they're patient and they approach people with grace. And so it helped me to recognize right away. And I went and I apologized to the people that were involved. But yeah, man, I wish I could tell you that it doesn't happen.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm glad that you cannot say that because I want to be in good company, right? And ladies and gentlemen, if you are listening to this episode, if you're watching this episode, and if you found yourself being less than gracious, not having the proper perspective, not responding the right way, not slowing down and letting pride get in our way, because I am your brother in that. Just know that there is forgiveness. There is grace. If we want to lead properly, if we want to go and take ownership and accountability, because when you enter with the right perspective, any situation, you're not correcting. And I know that Robert and I, being business owners, being entrepreneurs, being leaders, it's not always about correcting. It's about coaching. Right? You're calling people up. And this is one thing we love about Dr. John Maxwell. And we're not calling people out, we're calling them up. And that is a big difference in what we're doing today and what we have done. But Robin, if you would be so kind, would you go into how our view of business might shape our perspective, right? And so this is, or shape our future, how our view of business shapes its future with the perspective and everything there.
Yes, sir, definitely. And just before I do, I love what you said about us messing up, and we can mess up. I think it's important that when we do, I was going to say if, that when
Come on
we
now,
do.
no, coming from you, you can say if. I have to say when. You can say if all day, Robin.
when we do that, we can own up to it and
Yeah.
apologize, right? We are human. And I think people appreciate that. As a leader, in the long run, people appreciate when somebody can acknowledge the fact that they were not right, that they messed up, made a boo boo, whatever you want to call that. Sometimes, when you say things, it might be hard to actually take back. There's some times where you might cause so much hurt to somebody that sometimes is not repairable. But we still need to go and apologize and do our best to try and make it better, make it right.
So, Robin, before you continue, I do want to say that some of my most important leadership lessons have come as a result of the boo boo, have come
Yeah.
as a result of the mistake and having to own up and accept responsibility and take accountability of it. Now, I don't want to learn any more lessons that way,
Yeah.
right? If I
I
can
agree.
avoid it. But some of my
I
most
agree.
important leadership lessons did come on the other side of that misstep.
I agree. I agree with you 100% because, there's the old saying, sticks and stones can hurt my bones, but words, and that is so far from the truth.
So
Words can
far.
cause so much hurt that we do have to be careful with that. So I'm with you on that, sir. So
Yeah.
yeah, you asked about how business, our perspective of business shapes the future of our business. So that is a big perspective shift again. The question that I ask myself is this business about me or is it for others? When I answered that question honestly, it moved me from ego to impact. It moved me from control. It's about robbing, self preservation, to contribution. You know what I mean, Neal?
I know exactly what you mean. And so we hear you say that and we think that it sounds like grandiose, right? It's like, well, yeah, even like he's a big guy to be able to do this, to move from control to contribution, to move from ego to impact. But more important than anything, like that perspective shift is a freeing shift. Right. And so what happens is because the moment you stop trying to prove something, and if we're being honest, many of us today are still trying to prove something in many areas of our lives. And oftentimes we're trying to prove something to people who have no idea that we're trying to prove anything to them. Right. But once we stop trying to prove something, and start trying to build something bigger than ourselves, there is this thing that comes to us, and that's called clarity. And the thing I love about clarity is that clarity is freeing. Right? Clarity is empowering. Clarity makes room for opportunities that we never knew existed.
Yes, it's so true. And then the business becomes a platform, it becomes a tool, it's a way to serve. It's not just about succeeding, but it's a way to serve. When I saw the potential for the people that are working with us, for example, to grow and develop and to become the best that they can be and to provide for their families and to make a difference in their communities, starting in their homes and making a difference in their communities and so on, the business now became a platform where we could actually serve,
And
right?
so on that, Robin, that means once again, so ladies and gentlemen, Robin and I on this episode of The Big Life, we're really talking about that, the power of perspective, right? And so what I love is that we haven't had to do much drastically different than we might have done before. But maybe the reason we're doing it or how we're seeing it, that's going to shift everything. And it takes me back to when the way I look at things changes, the things I look at change.
Right on.
And so, especially this next point that I have the fortune of bringing up, and I think is fitting, the perspective anchors you in uncertainty, right? So, during uncertain times, your perspective is what anchors you. And Robin, we understand the value of anchors, both physical and metaphorical anchors, knowing the power that they have. But when the pressure hits, when life or business throws curveballs, fastballs, breaking balls, everything, perspective becomes your anchor. That's what's going to hold you in those times of uncertainty if you have the proper perspective, right? So some of our perspective might be an additional sail in the wind. It might be a captainless rudder, right? Or wheel, no one's at the helm. But if we have the proper perspective, it is going to anchor us when the economy goes haywire, when our finances are out of line, when our family relationships, when our health is not like it should be. It's going to hold us because we know that this and this that we have guarded and protected is in alignment.
Yeah, so true. I was thinking about, as you mentioned it, I was thinking about the pandemic. That's when I reminded myself, and I think a lot of us in our society did, that I'm a child of God, that the world wasn't coming to an end, that I am his masterpiece, and that he's for me, and that he's with me, and that he's working through me. And there was that time, especially, Neal, where I recognized that I was kind of doing a lot of it in my own thinking and in my own strength. And it took a pandemic for me to really kind of pull back a little bit more and dive in or dial up that perspective a little bit more in my life, recognize that I'm
Absolutely.
his, that I'm protected by him, that he is for me, and that he is with me no matter what uncertainty comes, no matter what difficulty or challenges. The perspective is that everything's going to be all right.
And
Right?
now, when you say that, that is not wishful thinking, right? So this is not Robin making light of the challenge, the storm, right? This is not Robin making light of life, saying that everything's going to be all right, right? This is not the Lego movie talking about everything is awesome, but he believes, we believe, and it's our hope and belief that you believe. When we started out this episode, Robin said a word that I want to make sure that we grab hold, and he said the truth. The truth. And so it's our heart that each and every listener, viewer, audience member knows the truth. And when you know the truth, that's what's going to be that anchor for us, Robin, especially when those storms come. And so that's so freeing for me and reassuring to me that it's not just wishful thinking, that's identity alignment. You mentioned
Yes.
that you are a child of God, that he is for you, that you're his masterpiece, that we are in the palm of his hand. That's identity alignment. That's not a pie in the sky idea. And what I love is when we lead from that place, when we lead from the place of certainty, of identity and who we are, uncertainty loses its grip. It doesn't have the power, regardless of what we see around us. Because, Robin, growing up, I was told, believe some of what you see, none of what you hear. Some of what you see, none of what you hear. So even though we might see some things, it might look like uncertainty around us. If we hold on to the truth that Robin is talking about, we can believe in that thing that we do not see. We do not have to believe what we see, because some of what we see is going to be a lie.
So true. Yes, sir. And so for our listeners, perspective isn't just about mindset. It's about remembering who you are. Remembering who you are. You are a child of God. You are made in his image and likeness. So your ability to love and think and create and lead is a reflection of his nature. And there's so much that we could say from that standpoint today, that we have to remember who we are. We are not an accident. We are created in his image and likeness. We are not just a random person, but we are all unique individuals created with purpose. And we could go on, Neal and I could go on, but that perspective is what we're talking about. It's about remembering who you are. And that's one of the perspectives that we have to protect,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of things coming at us trying to tell us something else.
All day, every day, nonstop, Robin. Even and so we used to have to wait to leave the home for the world to attack. Now the world is inside of our walls. The world even is in bed with us if we have our phones. And so we really want to do that. And so what I would love to do is just do a quick recap of some perspective shifts that we're encouraging you to consider. right? We don't tell you what you should do, but we want to open up some opportunities, some possibilities for you. The first perspective shift, the first of the 4 big shifts, is mindset, right? So mindset is your map. Your perspective is your map. And what you believe shapes what you see. And so my question to you is, what do you believe, or what are you currently seeing? Right? And if you don't like what you're seeing, maybe you need to believe something differently. If you are believing the wrong thing, change your belief. And maybe I'm willing to bet that you'll see something a little bit differently. And then let's move to your lens. Your lens leads your leadership. So, how we see things, the reason why we're doing things, our motives. So, especially for my leaders in any aspect, check your motive before the meeting. Whether it's going to be with your kids, employees, colleagues, friends, or family, just check your motive. As Robin said, is it about Robin or is it about them? Is it about me getting something off of my chest or helping them grow? And then, Robin, I'm going to ask, because you spoke about your business, would you go in and share those last 2 perspectives? Because I love hearing your voice, especially when we start talking about the business and the ministry and everything there.
Yes, so it's to remember that your business is a platform. And so it's not just about you, it's not just about success. It's about impact. It's about making a difference. It's moving from you, it's moving from ego to impact. And then the last one was that perspective anchors identity. And so we're to stand firm when the storms come. Right? The storms are coming, right?
Wait. Did you say if right there or not? Or you said when?
The storms are coming, right, Neal? I mean, you know what they say, right? You've either gone through one, you're either in the middle of one, or
one
if
is
not,
coming.
hold on, yours is coming.
Hey, Robin. So ladies and gentlemen, Robin and I are not making light of this with you all. What we're saying to ourselves, so we're looking at each other right now, and I'm saying, Robin, the storm you were in last week, I'm glad you got through it. The one you're in today will pass. And the one that's on its way tomorrow, buckle up, brother. Right. And so you couldn't make a more honest statement. So, wow, it might not seem encouraging. The storms are going to pass if we have the proper perspective, Robin. And that's why I wanted you to say it and not me, because I don't want the people getting mad at Neal any more than they already are. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, no, it's a good point for us to consider. I think we're serving our listeners by sharing that. Because if we're prepared for when it comes, we'll be able to deal with it a lot better. So here's our call to action for you. So we have a challenge for you this week, listeners. We want you to take a perspective inventory. All right, a perspective inventory. And so we want you to ask yourself these 3 things. Where am I reacting instead of responding? Where am I reacting instead of responding?
Robin, would you pause right there and on that? Are you willing to explain the difference between reacting and responding? Because I want to make sure that our audience knows the difference in a reaction and a response.
Well, I always like to give example, like I gave the example of the directive that we received the other day. Well, I reacted rather than responded. I can give you another example on the pickleball court, Neal, where somebody made a bad call and my reaction was to get in their face. And the correct response, this is the response that I want to make, is to, do that in a more loving manner, right? So reacting is where you just kind of boom without really thinking. You don't pause, you just boom and you just go for it. Whatever comes, I want to say naturally, instead of pausing and really thinking about what you're doing, right?
Absolutely,
and
sir.
making sure you're approaching it with the right perspective.
Yeah.
So there might be some things that we are doing that we realize that we're reacting rather than responding. I could probably, if you give me enough time here, I could tell you a time or two where I do that with my wife, where instead of responding, I reacted and it wasn't the proper reaction,
So Robin, that makes me think, is there ever going to be an episode where we have Edna and Joanna on with us as well? I'm just curious. Do you think
Wow.
that's a possibility?
I don't know. That's a thought.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I know you're like, man, we would love to have the first ladies on here and really let us know if these guys are living the big life or not. I don't know if
Yeah,
we're ready for that yet.
exactly, right? Like, okay, we come to tell the real story today, folks.
We might have to wait until season 2. So let's get past the first year, and then we go into season 2, and we see how our audience is. But if it's in demand, we might have to make some calls to HR. We might have to grease some pockets a little bit, take some good family vacations before we do that.
That's not a bad idea, though. So,
Well,
hey,
well,
you
for
never
us,
know.
it's not a bad idea, but we don't know what our wives. I would love to speak for my wife, but I know last time I did that, I got in trouble. That's one of the calls to actions. What else are we asking them to do with
So,
this perspective
taking this,
inventory?
yes. So where am I reacting instead of responding? Where have I lost sight of the bigger purpose or the bigger picture? Where have I lost? Where am I just looking at today and the details and the small rather than looking at the bigger picture? And what shift in perspective could unlock peace or clarity or momentum in my life right now, in your life right now? What shift in perspective could unlock peace or clarity or momentum for you?
So, Robin, I just want to, you've done such a great job sharing everything today. That last question hit me like immediately when you finished it the first time. I was like, man, I need to have a shift in perspective. I feel like I am the only one that is having anything bad happen to them. Right. And then I'm thinking, I'm like, one, that can't be true. Other people are going through storms because Robin just mentioned it. And then the next shift in my perspective is, how bad is my bad? Right? Because I have some minor inconveniences, but it's not bad. And when I shift, it's not just me. God isn't picking on me. The universe isn't saying, nah, nanny, boo boo, let's treat him harsh. And that was the first shift. But then the second shift was like, is it bad or is it inconvenient? Is it something that if you look at this obstacle a different way, could there be some possibility in there instead of a failure? Could it be something in there that you could learn? And so that was an immediate response for me, and I just wanted to share that with the audience. But here's what I want to do. I want to ask you that if this episode helped you reset your lens, I'm going to ask you to do one thing: share it with someone today who needs it. Remind them that they are not behind, that they are becoming. I'm going to ask you, don't shrink, don't second guess yourself or your progress. Just remember that your gift is needed. And for a number of episodes, Robin has had this cry that says, unleash it. You have something in you that inside of you, if it stays there, it is no good. We need you to unleash it. So make sure you share this with a friend, family member, colleague that you believe would benefit from what we shared here about the power of perspective.
Right on. And so, thank you for spending time with us today. Please leave us a review. Please, that helps this podcast to go out to more people, so it can help us to spread the word, spread the value. So please consider leaving a review for us today. We appreciate you being here with us. And until next time, remember, God loves you. We love you. And there's nothing you can do about it. And until we see you, remember, we're right there with you. Peace.
Take